Welcome, Blonde Babes. I'm your host, Fay Evans, and this is Blonde Thoughts, where I share my blonde thoughts. For those of you who don't know me, I am Faith Evans. I am a D1 cross country and track and field runner at Rider University. You may know me online for posting funny little videos on TikTok, or you may not know. I have a pretty decent amount of followers, but I wouldn't say I'm like famous or anything like that. So who knows? You may know me, you may not. I have no idea. I have dabbled in like a bunch of different areas of content creation throughout my life. I have literally done everything from makeup to gaming to commentary. So I'm all over the place. So I started listening to podcasts my freshman year of college, which was last year, which I feel like is like a pretty universal experience for most freshman girls in college. And as I'm like listening to these and as these are like helping me survive college, I kind of just got the feeling that this is kind of what I was supposed to do. So I figured, why not start my own podcast? Because I like talking. So let me just share my dumbass thoughts to the world. So that is why I started this podcast. In this podcast, I basically just plan to literally like share my blonde thoughts. Some weeks I'll maybe just do dumb, funny thoughts, and other weeks maybe I'll give like legitimate advice. Well, as legitimate as it can be coming from a 19-year-old girl who probably does not know a lot about what she's talking about. Or maybe I'll even tell you stories about my life. Who knows? Basically, for this podcast, I just wanted to feel like we're like best friends, you know, like on a FaceTime call, just chatting about crazy little thoughts that pop into our head. Yeah, so basically it's chill, it's relaxed. I'm wearing pajamas, so yeah, for those of you who cannot see what I'm wearing. But anyways, to get into this video, today I'm just going to be talking about what I learned from my first year being a D1 athlete. Some of the stuff I've written down is just like fun stuff, like funny stories, whatever. And then there's some advice I would give people that are either going into D1 sports or just like going into college in general, or maybe if you're already in college, you could use this advice. But I'm not going to go too deep into that. The topics are basically just things that I've learned from my first year at college. They don't all necessarily have to do with being a D1 athlete, but like they kind of do, because like being a D1 athlete kind of really shaped my freshman experience. So even if you're not becoming a D1 athlete, you can probably still relate to it. I learned a lot of life lessons this year, but I'm not going to go into those because I want to do individual episodes about those so that I can go deeper into the topic without making like a 5-hour long podcast. But anyways, let's just get into it. Okay, I'm going to start out with a little bit more of a fun topic to kind of like ease us into everything. One thing that I learned from my first year of college, being a D1 athlete, really just my first year of college, but like I just kind of want to use that as clickbait, was what parties are like. So I had never went to a party before I went to college, which some people find very surprising. But it's just, I've always been kind of like a goody two-shoes. I had anxiety, so I'm like extremely scared of breaking the rules. So I never really went to parties or anything. And also in my hometown, there weren't really like parties. There's the popular group and they had parties, but if you weren't in the popular group, there were no parties. So I was not in the popular group because I was a loser. Sorry, y'all, my ring light just died because I'm really good at planning. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, I was a loser. So I did not get invited to parties in high school. So I did not go to any parties. So when I got to college, I was so ready to go to parties. I was like, oh yeah, this is the college experience. This is going to be so fun. But I was also really nervous because like I have anxiety again. But here's where I made a little mistake. I decided, since, you know, I'm an athlete, so I'm not drinking, I'll be the designated driver at my first ever party. Not just first ever college party, first ever party, ever. As you may guess, it did not end well. So yeah, if anyone else is going to their first ever party soon, do not be the designated driver. And I will tell you why. So I may or may not have had a little too many people in my car, but you know, we fit, so it worked out. But don't do that, kids or adults. But anyways, I kind of felt like I was responsible for all of them. I felt like I was in charge of making sure they didn't do anything that they regretted in the morning because I was the designated driver. As you may guess, that led to a little bit of issues because this party ended up being really crazy and there was a lot of stuff going on, and then I was getting really overwhelmed because I had never seen people act like this before. I had never been surrounded by that many drunk people before. And I was kind of like, oh, like there's people hanging on me, like literally hanging on me so that they don't topple over. There's people making out everywhere. And I'm like, I'm not used to this. There was just like so much stuff going on around me. I think I just got really overwhelmed, and this is really embarrassing. Actually, no, it's not embarrassing because it's only embarrassing if you make it embarrassing. But it was kind of embarrassing. I got overwhelmed, and I started crying in the middle of this party. It was towards the end, so I got through most of the night. But I started crying, and then this is a smaller party, so like one of the girls that lives in the house comes up to me. She's like, "Oh my god, are you okay? Like, did something happen?" And then I'm over here. I'm just like, I'm just really overwhelmed. Like, I've never been to a party. I can't do this. And this sweet, sweet girl, literally, she's like, "Okay, I'll get everyone together. Like, the party can end. Like, it can be over." I'm like, "Huh?" So basically, I ended the party because I started sobbing. And that was the first one I went to. So, lovely first impression from my fellow peers. No, it's okay. Everybody was really nice about it. And also, I don't think everybody knew that that's why that they were telling everyone to go home. But, looking back, I definitely would have done some things differently. But, the past is the past. I can't redo the past. So, I just learned not to act like a little bitch at parties. But, well, not that. Okay. I just want to say I would not judge anybody else for doing what I did, but because I did it, I'm judging myself, not you. Okay, now let's do one that's a little bit more directly because newbies. D1 athlete. Oh, balancing. If you are a D1 athlete, it is so important for you to balance the different aspects of your life because you're spending so much time training, and you're spending so much time like with your team on the sport, whatever. It is so easy to become completely consumed with the sport. And then once you become consumed with the sport, you start feeling more like a machine than a human being. Basically, what I learned is that it's really important to make time like for yourself, for your social life, to have hobbies. I learned that the sport can't take over your whole life because it'll make you feel awful. I feel like non-athletes can relate to this a lot too in like but like more of like the social sense. Like you can't let your social life take over everything just because you're trying to make new friends. Because if you don't take time for yourself to like reflect on like what you've done, like your decisions, everything, how are you supposed to learn and how are you supposed to grow? As much as it's important to be social and to make new friends and everything, having alone time is just as important. And then the same thing goes for like maybe someone who's more like academically focused. Like it's okay to socialize sometimes. It's okay to go to that party. I feel like balance with like sports and academics are kind of the same. Like if you get too invested into academics, then you kind of feel like a machine. You kind of like lose yourself as a person. And then I actually want to go a little bit more into FOMO. I feel like FOMO in college, I had never felt FOMO, fear of missing out for anybody who doesn't know, until I got to college. But FOMO is real. Like, especially, I'm going to talk a little bit first about how it relates to like being a D1 athlete. I feel like the FOMO was a little worse for me because I was a D1 athlete. Like, yes, I had that built-in social group, but at the same time, like, those are the people that you're going to be surrounded by for like the rest of your college career. So, they're kind of the people that you want to like have a connection with, and you don't want to miss out on stuff with them, on like making memories with them, making connections with them, because you're going to be with those people for so long. And the same thing could go for like people that aren't athletes either, because you do feel like there's that pressure that like if you don't go to every single social event, like you'll miss out on making memories, you'll miss out on this, miss out on that, or like you'll miss out on the chance of making friends. And like, you're at college, you're at a new place, like that's what everyone's goal is their freshman years. Basically make friends so that they're not alone. But I learned that like you don't have to go to something just because everybody else is. Like if you don't think that you should go to something, don't go. Like if you think it's best for you to stay home instead of going to some sort of like event or like party or something, then stay home and it's okay. And you may miss out on like something fun that happened, but at least you can know that you did what's best for you. And if you go to like every event, you're not going to be able to really show up as yourself to every event. So it's better to just like take breaks, take alone time. Kind of like the same thing with like balancing. Balancing social life and alone time is a big thing that I learned that is very, very necessary. The other thing that I learned about being a D1 athlete that kind of surprised me was the attitude towards D1 athletes, or like the attitude towards the athletes in the school. Which I don't know if this is a universal thing or if it's just at my school, but basically, I just kind of felt like people would assume that you're kind of an asshole because you were an athlete, which, like, I kind of understand because, student athletes literally call non athletes NARPs. That doesn't sound like a very endearing term. At least on my team, it's used as like a neutral term. Like, it's not used as a negative term. But I know there are a lot of people that use it as a negative term. It's like I would say, like, I'm an athlete in like the icebreaker stuff at the beginning of class, and people would kind of like give you like the side eye or something, and I was like, oh, people don't like athletes here, and I think I'm a pretty nice person, so I don't think people should assume that. It's just kind of something I wasn't expecting. I will say there are a lot of people who are respectful towards the athletes, but there's also like a good amount of people that look down on them in a way. That's just something I found surprising. I learned a lot about like nutrition and body image this year. I don't want to get too deep into this topic because it's something that I'm still kind of working through. I learned a lot about how deeply important nutrition is to athletes. If you do not eat enough, you will not perform nearly as well as you do while you're eating enough. You have to eat a surprising amount more than you think to actually be performing at your best, which is often something that people think is the other way around. But if you are an athlete, like, you have to eat. And that's just kind of something that I had to learn throughout the year. Fueling is good for you, and it's not something that's bad. And with body image, it took me a while, but I kind of realized that beauty is just kind of in the eye of the beholder. There really can be no standard of beauty because everybody has like their different, perceptions of beauty. So like, kind of like, what's the point of adhering to a beauty standard if there really can't be one because everybody's views of beauty are different? You were born with your own body, own it. You're gonna live in that for the rest of your life, so you need to own that shit. Eat it up. And someday I do hope to go more into that topic, but as of right now, I haven't fully learned all there is to know. Not that I fully learned all there is to know about any of this or any of life, but I just feel like I need to know more before I go into my story. Something that I kind of was surprised about that I didn't really think of was like traveling as a D1 athlete. It's really cool to travel as a D1 athlete because you go to so many different places. Like, I know for at least like cross country and track, like, we have to go stay over, and like sometimes we'll have like time to explore and stuff. An example is Boston. Indoor track and field, we go to Boston a lot. I'd never been to Boston before, but we had the opportunity to like explore the city, and we had people there who knew their way around the city and like knew different things. And it was just like a really cool experience. I was like, dang, I never thought I would, but I really like Boston. Like, it's really fun when you get to go different places and do different things. Another thing I learned was that, like, with D1 sports, it can either cause you to really, really love the sport even more or really, really hate the sport. And I feel like there's a lot of factors that it can depend on. It can depend on experience, like coaches, training plans, or maybe even like the person itself. Maybe they didn't like the sport as much as they thought they would. I mean, I was very lucky because I felt even more in love with the sport than I was before. And honestly, I think it's because I have such a great coach. But I see a lot of videos on like TikTok and Instagram of people who maybe like had bad coaches or like had like over intense training or like whatever that ended up hating the sport because of it. And I feel like there's a very thin line, and I think where you go has a lot to do with it. But I saw all these like TikTok posts and Instagram posts, and I was pretty scared. I was like, what if like entering a D1 sport, what if it makes me not like running anymore? Luckily for me, that's not the case. It actually made me fall like even deeper in love with the sport. And I'm really glad because in order to be a D1 athlete, like, you have to really love the sport because you spend like a lot of your life doing it. So you're not having fun and it'll just be absolutely miserable. And the final thing I learned is that you will make mistakes. That's just college in general, but you will make mistakes because college is such a huge learning experience for people because like it's like a trial run for life. Like, you're learning about life, you're learning what about yourself, you're learning about what you want to do. Like, you will make mistakes, but that's the only way that you will grow. So you can't really be afraid of those mistakes. And also, everyone makes mistakes. So really, just don't beat yourself up about it. And also, be empathetic towards people because they make mistakes too. Because we're all on this college roller coaster, and it goes insane. So anyway, I think that's all I had for today. If you like this podcast, make sure to rate it 5 stars or give it a like, and share with your friends or family so that they can listen too. Or if you're feeling even more generous, maybe share it on your socials. That'd be pretty cute. If you have any suggestions for things that you want me to talk about, DM me at Fay Evans with 2 S's on Instagram, and maybe I'll include your topic in a video or in a podcast, not a video. I don't know why I said that. If you like this podcast and you want to see or hear more of me, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify or YouTube, Blonde Thoughts Podcast. You can follow my personal socials at Fay Evans with 2 S's again on Instagram, and then just at Fay Evans on TikTok. You can follow the podcast socials at Blonde Thoughts Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Anyways, I think that's it for today. So I'll see you later, blonde babes. Bye. Mwah.